Give me just 1 second. Parthiban sir, I think let me have the gallery view so I can actually see our assembly.
We are in the gallery view, actually.
Yeah.
Are you able to see, or?
Yes, I'm able to see everybody. I was in the viewer, I was in the speaker mode.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the first question is, what exactly is the meaning of this word jnana? As I mentioned, it comes from the root with jnane, know. And so there are several other etymologies according to Paninian grammar. With jnane, that means something that you can experience. With labhe, that is what you can obtain. With sattayam, where something is existing or which is a being. With vicharane, it also means inquiry. So you have a number of etymologies, all of them fit the definition that Veda means jnana. And Veda is also called Shruti, because all this knowledge from the time immemorial, it has been transmitted orally, that is from the teacher to student. In the immediate presence of the teacher, Veda has to be learned. Of course, we have several tools these days. You have YouTube and so on and so forth. But there are some problems with learning indirect. That is, there is nobody to correct me if I am uttering the Veda mantras inaccurately. And therefore, serious students of the Veda, it is necessary that you learn it from a teacher, and hence it is called Shruti. And Veda is also a text, that is where it imparts the knowledge. So this begs a question. All bodies of knowledge should be called Veda. Physics should be called Veda. Mathematics should be called Veda. Why is it we don't apply that particular term to anything other than the Veda as we have inherited from time immemorial in the Vedic culture? It is because Veda has been defined as something that you cannot know either by direct perception, visual perception, or by your experimentation, or by inference. Pratyakshena, anumanena, whatever is directly and by inference, that which you cannot know, and that body of text which tells us, which is beyond sensory perception, and that is to be called as Veda. So this is a body of knowledge which bypasses all our direct perceptions and then goes on to give us an experience of that knowledge. Then another reason why we have called Veda as a Shruti is because Bhagavan Vedavyasa told that when the final dissolution happens, the entire knowledge will be hidden. Then when the new creation takes place, chosen rishis are asked to do tapas. And because of their tapas, whatever was hidden by the command of Parabrahman, by the command of Brahman, Prajapati, they actually bring it back to the world and propagate it. Yugante antarhitan Vedan. At the end of the dissolution, all the Vedas that are hidden. Itihasan Maharshaya. Please note, it also includes Itihasa, such as the Ramayana and Mahabharata and the Puranas. Lebhire tapasa purvam. So they first sat in meditation and brought this out by anujñātāha swayambhuva, by the command of the creator. So some keywords. who are chosen by the Creator? Those who are capable of doing tapas, those who are committed to doing tapas. So it is not just handed over to anybody and everybody. The first set of people to whom the right and authority to invoke the Vedas is where they are capable of absolute focused tapas to get this knowledge. Ever since, Veda has been an oral tradition. So the next question is, what exactly constitutes this body of knowledge, Veda? Veda, the expression actually refers to the hoary, beginningless tradition of Bharata. I'm using the word Bharata very deliberately because it is not limited to, confined to the present day political India, but the greater Bharata. And the word is actually does not refer to the 4 branches of the Veda that we know. It is not limited to say Veda means Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda. The word Veda signifies the entire heritage of Bharata, which is recorded before the collection of the Veda mantras and the creation of Rig Veda, Yajurveda, etc. It was protected in folk tales, in folk songs, in ballads, and in legends, and in Itihasa and Purana. So why was this knowledge preserved? It is because our ancients discovered that for all questions on how should I conduct myself, in all circumstances, you can go to this source called Veda, and therefore Veda was also defined as Vedo Khilo Dharma Moolam. That means the entire Veda is the real source for our knowing what is Dharma. Because a lot of times people interpret what is Dharma according to their understanding of the world. But here we have to go back to the original text of the Vedas and then validate if what we are thinking about Dharma is accurate or not. So not only the concepts of Dharma was stored in the words, songs, stories, and in the books, but it was also in the conduct of the people. And it is called a Shishtachara. So you not only you go to the text for clarification, but you also see in your own contemporary society from the beginning of time who is adhering to the true Vedic ideal, and under all challenges and circumstances, have they lived like that? This is called Shishtachara. So Shishtachara is the outward expression of the inner meaning of Veda, repository of Dharma. If somebody can please mute. And Tasmat, therefore, what is the subject matter of Veda? Tasmat, therefore, Dharma ityeva Shastra Vishayaha. In the whole of the Vedic corpus, it is only the Dharma that is to be culled out. And everything else, ritual, etc., 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 are all incidental to the practice of Dharma. How many Vedas are there? Again, the scriptures say, Ananta vai Vedaha. Why is this infinite in this body of knowledge? It is because Dharma and then the conduct of the noble Shishtachara is not a static thing. Because as and when the human, economic, political, social activity grow, correspondingly, Dharma and Shishtachara also have to keep evolving. And therefore, naturally, the Vedic corpus also goes on increasing, goes on expanding. And therefore, no one can ever hope and can even plan to know the entire Veda completely and exhaustively. Even the 4 Vedas also, we cannot know completely and exhaustively. Just to give you a little perspective, once I just wanted to test how long does it take to chant the Rig Veda. There are 10,000 and odd mantras in the Rig Veda. I just started timing as I was chanting. It took me 48 hours to just read the Rig Veda. So you can imagine now we have got 3 more Vedas, how much time it would require. And to learn these 48, these 10,000 odd mantras, it takes close to 12 years. And therefore, first and foremost, we have to say that I am going to look into the Vedic collection, my dharma, how I should conduct myself in my particular circumstances. And that is where we would limit ourselves in the study of the Veda also. There is a beautiful story in the Krishna Yajurveda, Taittiriya Brahmana. In the Veda itself, there is a story. It seems there was a very enlightened, erudite sage by name Bharadwaja. And this Bharadwaja spent 300 years. In those days, probably they lived long. And he spent 300 years of completely dedicated study for the Veda. So the king of the gods, Indra, was very pleased to find one person on the earth, a human being, who is so committed that he spent the entire life of 300 years, who has now become old, in just continuing the contemplation on Veda, and he comes and appears before him. And Indra said, you have done a great job in studying the Veda, in this Veda Dhyana. I am very pleased with you. Suppose I give you another 100 years of life, what would you do? And Bharadwaja replied, I will study more. And Indra, he pointed to 4 huge mountains. And then he collected one handful of earth from each one of the mountains. And then he told Bharadwaja, in the last 300 years, this is how much you have studied. And therefore, give up this ambition of exhaustively reading the Veda, but start applying that for dharma and shishtachara. So even if we learn one single value in our study of the Veda, I will speak about one single value that we can cultivate, very relevant to this day. One single value, if we are able to cultivate, to that extent our study of the Veda is successful. But this still has got, the story has got an important point, that study as much of Veda as possible in your life and know its content and know its meaning, however little. Even if you learn only one sukta, one Shanti mantra, Sahana Bhavatu, and you know exactly what it means and will live like that, then our study of Veda is complete. Apply this knowledge to understand and propagate dharma, exactly what the temple and then under leadership of Sanat Kumar and Dr. Sagar is happening. This whole series is dedicated to sit and think about what should be our dharma. Swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat, says Bhagavan Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, verse 240. So a little bit of dharma it must translate. Then only our Vedic study is complete. Therefore, what can we conclude from the foregoing discussion? The purpose of studying the Veda is to know dharma unambiguously. So that is the goal of the study. Because dharma is the first and foremost of the pursuit of human life. called the Purusharthas. Dharma is the very essence of our existence. Dharma is what supports and is the basis of everything. It is the stabilizing power of society. And therefore they say, Dharanat dharma ityahu dharmena vidrita prajaha. And dharma is supported by the Veda. In the Mahanarayana Upanishad, which we are studying elsewhere in our Veda class, there is a mantra, Dharmo Vishwasya Jagatah Pratishtha. That is the glorification of the purpose and the content of Veda. But knowledge should be expressed in action. Otherwise, what is the use of all our knowledge if it is not applied practically? Therefore, there arises a need to classify the entire body of knowledge. And this body of knowledge, as you saw from the story, is humongous. Even for a mind such as Bharadwaja, it was too much. But there is a need. What should be taught? What should be really left out? How much should be taught? That had to be established. So we need someone of an extraordinary divine intelligence to come and classify and arrange the Veda. This was taken up by Bhagavan Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa's birth name was Krishnadvaipayana because he was born on an island to his parents, Parashara Muni and Satyavati. And then he was named as Krishna, and therefore he is called Krishnadvaipayana. He was actually the great-grandson of Vasishtha, grandson of Shakti, son of Parashara, and father of Shuka Maharshi. You can see what an extraordinary lineage. And many, many of you know of this, those who chant the Vishnu Sahasranama, Vyasam Vasishtanaptaram, Shakteh Pautram Akalmasham, Parasharatmacham Vande Shukatatam Taponidhim. So he was the one who came on the scene to customize the Vedic corpus for the future, who will be at a loss by looking at the expansive knowledge of Veda so that they can determine what to choose. So he took up the classification of the Veda, which is the second part of our subject today. By the time Vedavyasa appeared on the scene, already Yajna, which is all the fire sacrifice using the Agni, was very well established. This Yajna or sacrificial ritual had 4 priests, and each one of them were supported by 3 priests. That means 16 priests in all. We have tried to replicate this in a yajna which we have been performing in Kalamazoo, Michigan every year with 16 priests. And among them, the first of the priests is called Hotru. He is the priest who knows Rigveda. He invokes the devatas to the altar by reciting the mantras called the Puronavakya. And then once the devatas come, he recites the hymns by which you offer the oblations called the Yajya mantras. So these mantras were known as to what this invoking priest called Hotru does. So Bhagavan Vedavyasa took all those Puronavakya and the Yajya mantras, beautiful hymns, extraordinary poetry, collected them and assembled and called it as a Rigveda, classification number 1. But the Hotru, this priest, he himself does not even go near the sacred fire Agni. Then once the devatas are invoked, another priest takes over the yajna process. What he does is he will start singing the glory of the devata who is brought to the altar. Udgatru, he is called, and then he sings these hymns. Then we have got a Advaryu. This Advaryu is the priest who actually offers oblations into the fire, and then he is the one who knows the details of the ritual, and therefore we have a third set of priests who is actually performing the ritual using the specific mantras for the ritual. Then there also is a supervisor of the yajna. He's called as Brahma. He's a fourth priest. He's a MC of the event. He actually supervises and guides whenever there is a demand, but he must be absolutely knowledgeable in the procedure and the way and the mantras chanted by the invoking priest Hotru, by the singing priest Udgatru, by the performing priest Advaryu, and therefore he was called as a Brahma, and then he must be proficient in all the matters of yajna, and therefore Veda Vyasa looked at how these priests were conducting the yajna, and therefore what he did was, based on this scheme, Bhagavan Veda Vyasa collected the mantras recited by Hotru, called it as Rigveda, collected the mantras sung by the Udgatru, called it Samaveda, collected the mantras used in the ritual and called it as Yajurveda, and Brahma's role was probably collected as Atharva Veda, and this is how we have the 4 Vedas. Now, further classification was required. Why further classification was required? It is because somebody, even before they come to the Vedic altar, they have got to memorize these mantras. And then somebody who is actually performing these mantras must master the procedures. And then there must be somebody who contemplates on the meaning of these mantras, so that in an assembly, in a yajna that is going on, suppose somebody asks, what do you mean by all these things? He should be able to explain to him. And there must also be a philosophical content in all our activities. Because what is dharma? Dharma is conduct, good conduct, shishtachara. Why do we want this shishtachara? So that in the existence till our death, we must be experiencing goodness. And on death, the Veda says we have got to get liberated, or moksha. And for that sake, there must be some organization. Therefore, Bhagavan Veda Vyasa, what he does was, he further classified all of these 4 Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharva Veda. As a sidebar, Rigveda are the collection of the mantras used by Hotru, who invokes the Devatas with Puronavakya and the Yajya mantras. And Samaveda is the one Udgatru who sings and praises the Devatas. Then we have the Advaryu who conducts with Yajurveda. And finally, we have the Brahma who knows the entire corpus. And therefore, all of these 4, Veda Vyasa decided, let me classify further into 2 parts. One part which is completely pertaining to the yajna. And I want another part which will take a person to knowledge. Because what is Veda? Knowledge. So knowledge is the ultimate aim. And therefore what Veda Vyasa did was, he divided all of these into, that means each one of the Vedas, of the 4 Veda Shakas, branches, into 2, Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, that is section on action and a section on knowledge. So for whom is this addressed? Karma Kanda part of the Veda is addressed to those who want to perform rituals, those who want to maintain order in society, such as the kings, Those who want to make sure trade and commerce goes well, that is the traders. So the classification of the society needed a action and a manual for action. And those manuals for action is called the Karma Kanda part in the classification of the Vedas. Then the Jnana Kanda part is for those who want to pursue knowledge exclusively with the idea of attaining liberation or moksha. So Karma Kanda is much more drama, lot more activity. Whereas Jnana Kanda or pursuit of knowledge and liberation is a meditative act. It is usually done in solitude, whereas all activities happen in society and with other people. And therefore, Karma Kanda was further divided into 3 sections. And one is called Samhita, which is collection of all the mantras, so that a student of a particular branch of the Veda can memorize all the mantras. Let's take the example of a student of Rigveda. Once he completely masters the 10,000 odd of the mantras, then in any particular yajna, he will know which exactly is the Purana mantras to invoke the gods, which exactly is the Yajya mantras to offer the oblations. And therefore, the prerequisite for them to sit in a yajna is he has to memorize the mantras. So, for the sake of memorization, samhitas or collection of mantras were designed by Bhagavan Vedavyasa. Then a manual of how and where these mantras have to be applied, that was created by the next set of text called Brahmana. The reason why it was called Brahmana is Brahma, who is the MC of the yajna. This manual is particularly addressed to that Brahma, so it was called Brahmana. It has nothing to do with the caste. Then people get old. They will not be able to perform the ritual, elaborate ritual, which requires resources and physical strength. They choose a lifestyle of retirement called Vanaprastha Ashrama. At that point of time, they meditate upon the various rituals and the mantras that they have studied and perform the yajna and create a bridge between Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda, bridge to knowledge. That is what happens in the Aranyaka. So in Samhita, what is the content of the Samhita? Mantras for prayer to Devatas, for worship. Why? For the sake of rain and crops, to get children, for health, longevity and wealth, for victory in wars. Then in Brahmana, injunctions as to how to perform these rituals are called Vidhi was also established. Brahmanas became the source for Varna and Ashrama classification of society. Then, when to perform a yajna is part of Brahmana. Who has the authority to conduct the yajna? Part of Brahmana. What ingredients are required? Part of the Brahmana. And therefore, this Brahmana text also became extremely important. As we continue our study of our heritage, I will talk more about it when we touch on Mimamsa. Then there is a third set of texts called Aranyaka, which are the forest texts. These texts expound on the meaning and the intricacies of the yajna. So if you want to interpret a particular puja or a particular yajna and then teach the assembly, the knowledge of Aranyaka is indispensable. And they are also the preparatory texts for understanding the philosophical concepts of Jnana Kanda. Many of you who go to the temple regularly may be very much aware of at least one Aranyaka text called the Aruna Prashna. are Surya Namaskara mantras. This happens, this is part of the Krishna Yajurveda Taittiriya Aranyaka, first chapter. There are 132 paragraphs, and then people chant this during the Dhanurmasa. Dhanurmasa is about December 15th to January 15th, and also during the Magha month every Sunday. And it's very much worth studying because it is an extraordinary bridge to Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. The fourth classification is Jnana Kanda. It's also called Upanishad. It is also called Vedanta, or the concluding part of the Veda, and it is also the goal of the Veda. What is the ultimate aim of the Veda? To teach us what is Dharma and also to lead us to moksha. And therefore, Bhagavan Vedavyasa, what he did was, he collected all the philosophical mantras into a group of texts called the Upanishads. The 10 Upanishads are very, very popular. Isha, Kena, Kata, Prashna, Mundaka, Mandukya, Taittiriya, Aitareya, Chandogya, Brihadaranyaka. And then the subject matter of Upanishads is Brahman, the absolute reality in the universe, and Atman, the absolute reality inhering within ourselves. And then Atman and Brahman are not available to our sensory perception. And therefore, the only access about Atman and Brahman is through the Upanishad. So the Upanishad uses the language which has got limitation, but that's the only tool we have got. And using this language, it uses the strategies, 4 kinds of strategies in the Upanishad. When you study, you will see. Number 1 is, it uses name or sound to indicate the unknowable Brahman. That is how we saw already a parsing of Om. And we also saw the Vyakhritis, Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Savaha. These are all the nomenclature pointing to the unpointable, the unknowable, the ungraspable, agrakyam, adreshyam. And then using these utterances, in our mind, we can grasp what is abstract and realize the absolute. The second of the 4th technique that is used in Upanishad is called Rupa Sanketa. That means it gives a metaphor of a form. For example, in the Ishavasya Upanishad, it says, the truth is hidden in the glitter of the world. So to signify that, it says, in a golden vessel, there is the truth that is hidden. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham. So you will be able to relate a golden vessel to the glitter of the world. That's the philosophical idea. Then Karma Sanketa, or the third one, is where you extrapolate a particular to the universal. For instance, we know that food is the one which sustains us. It is with food we are born and we become food. And therefore, that from which everything is born, which sustains everything, to which everything returns, is defined as Brahman. So Upanishad said, Annam Brahmeti Vyajanat. You have to know Anna as Brahman. So you use an actual physical entity to realize an abstract entity. Then the 4th and the final is storytelling, Katha Sanketa. Many, many stories abound in the Upanishads to drive home the point. Then the word Upanishad means to sit near and to loosen the bondage. And therefore, Bhagavan Vedavyasa First, what he did was he knew the entire corpus of the Veda, collected them, assembled them as Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samveda, Atharva Veda, and in each one of them he divided it into the Samhita, Brahmana, Aranyaka, and Upanishad. And then he had to find somebody to continue the tradition, because you remember this is all oral transmission. Bhagavan Vedavyasa did not write down anything. It was all mentally conceived. And therefore he had to find the right students. He had 4 extraordinary students. There was one sage called Paila. He called him and said, "You will be in charge of my collection of Rigveda mantras." Vaishampayana got Yajurveda. Jaimini got Samaveda. Sumantu got Atharva Veda. Thus you see that tradition of the 4 Vedas, 4 Veda branches, long tradition of Upasana started. Now there is a question. Did Vedavyasa arrange all these things arbitrarily? Just because he had a very influential role, did he simply say, this is how it is? Or was it based on the Veda? Bhagavan Vedavyasa is so honest to the Veda. He went back to Purusha Sukta. In Purusha Sukta, there is a mantra, Ruchasama Nijajnire Chandagam Sijajnire Tasmat Yajastasmadajayata. So because the Veda itself has recognized these names, Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and therefore Bhagavan Vedavyasa did not take any liberty. He strictly adheres to the Vedic tradition. You might have also heard that there are many further classifications. Each one of the Vedas got further classifications, such as Rigveda had actually 21 classifications. Then Yajurveda had 101 classifications. Samaveda had 1,000 classifications. And Atharva Veda had 9 classifications. Over 1,000 classifications were further developed. But over a period of time, what is left for us is, in Rigveda, 3 branches are left for us, called the Shakala, Bashkala, and the Sankhayana branches. Then in Yajurveda, we have got 2, Shukla and Krishna. And in Shukla also, there is a further classification of Kanva branch, mostly practiced in South India, and a Madhyandina branch practiced in North India. Then we have got the Krishna Yajurveda, Taittiriya practiced mostly in South India, and Maitrayaniya in North India. Then we have in Samaveda, there are 4 branches, Ranayaniya, Kauthuma, Paingi, and Jaimini. So if any of you have gone to Kerala, in the Trishur temple, the Vadakanathan temple, next to the Vadakanathan temple, there is a Samaveda school. In that school, right from the time of Jaimini, unbroken tradition of teacher-students is still prevalent. Another place where you can see that unbroken tradition is in Gokarna in coastal Karnataka. There also, the Ranayaniya branch of Samaveda to this day is preserved, again starting right from Jaimini. So it is not that we have lost anything like many people lament. Then the Atharva Veda has 2 branches, Shaunaka and Pippalada. Personally, about 20 years back, there was a group of retired IAS officers who came together and wanted to preserve the Vedas. They went all around the the country to identify the best of these scholars. They called it as the Delhi Vedic Trust. And one of the founders, Krishnan, came to our house in Columbus to visit me and then to tell me about their work. In fact, later on, I went to Chennai and also I saw what an extraordinary work they were doing. And I'm very happy to tell you that soon after, they have produced all of these branches in recording, and it is available. And that Krishnan passed away, then Subramanyam, another founder, that he also passed away, and now it has been registered as Veda Prasara Samiti. This Veda Prasara Samiti, many of those recitations are there on YouTube, and then you can also get all these branches of all the Vedas in their most authentic recitation. So, though many further shakas have propped up, they are all reordering of the mantras. As time progresses, we have got to customize the syllabus. In fact, even in my Veda class, I have collected the mantras based on the devatas. For instance, one volume is dedicated to mantras relating to Vishnu, and another relating to Shiva, another to Devi, and one more all philosophical texts. So you are at liberty to select those mantras and create your own syllabus. And that's exactly what is meant by these thousands of shakas. So they come and go, that's it. But the really, really powerful ones, that is where organization is done based on the rishis. For example, Rigveda, the Shakala branch of Rigveda, all the books are based on the one group of rishis and their students. For example, if you see the first group, Madhuchanda and Vishwamitra Rishi, all the mantras that was discovered by them is there in Rigveda first mandala. So it can be based on the Rishi. It can be based on a particular meter called Chandas, or it can be based on a particular Devata. So you can classify and reorder it based on your school and what you want to teach and what your students need in the context of the present times. Then, whenever there are classifications and divisions, it is natural that cults, clans, competition, and rivalry occur. Everything is done in very good intention. But still, somebody will say, I am a Rigvedi, and therefore I don't even talk to a person who chants Yajurveda. All these are absolutely against the Vedic vision. And as part of the Veda, the Varna and Ashrama Dharma was created. Why was Varna and Ashrama Dharma created? It is to pool the talent. It is to promote a harmonious order in society. But look, our entire Vedic vision has been lost. And so much of quarrel takes place even in the study of the Veda. A person who studies Rigveda, he says, I will never touch Samaveda. What a sad state of affairs. So though all these classifications were done for the convenience of the study, the spirit of the Veda should never be forgotten. It is unity. It is being one. The fundamental message of Veda is Ekam Sat, is one reality. And all of us relate to that reality, only we approach it by different ways, that is all. Veda Vyasa knew what was going to come in the future. And therefore, to highlight this message, Bhagavan Veda Vyasa placed a hymn called the Samjnana Sukta, which I have renamed in my class as Aikamatya Sukta. That is a hymn for unity, and this Veda Vyasa placed as the last sukta of the Rigveda. With that sukta, I will conclude my presentation today. This sukta goes like this. Sangachadhvam samvadadhvam. Come together, speak together. Samvo manam sejanatam. Let your minds be in harmony. Deva bhagam yatha purve. As the gods of the old together. Sanjanana upasate. Sat in harmony to worship. Samano mantra samete samani. The speech is one, united in the voice and thought. Samanam manas sahachittame. The mind in unison with the thoughts of the voice. Samanam mantram abhimantrayevaha. In union with the words that I speak to you. Samanena vo havisha juhomi. To you, the sacrifice I make, the one. Samani va akutihi. Let your aim be one and single. Samana hridayani vaha. Let your hearts be joined in one. Samanamastu vo manaha. The mind at rest in unison. Yathavassu sahasati. At peace with all. So you may be. It is the 10th mandala, 191st sukta. The translation I read is by Jean Me, a beautifully translated into poetry. Give me just 1 second, please. I have a table of the 4 Vedas, their classifications and all that. I will share that to you, Parthiban sirs, and whoever wants to have a copy of that, you can please share with them.
Sure, I will do that, sir.
Sure.
Thanks, sir.
I can use the screen, right? So I can show you.
Yeah, you can share your screen. I think it is enabled. Let me know if you cannot.
So you can see here, there is the Veda Shaka, there is the Rigveda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, Atharvaveda in the left column, and there is a discussion of who the priest is. The Veda Shaka, how many Shakas I counted, I gave you the list of the Shakas, and what are the Samhitas called, what are the Brahmanas called, what is the Aranyaka called, what are the Upanishads relating to the various of the Vedas. This chart is there. It is there now recorded, and also I will send it to Parthiban sir. Anybody who would like to have that chart can feel free to have that. And I would like to thank Dr. Bhanu Sharma. I saw her in the assembly, the president, and we also have Shivraman on the board of trustees for giving this opportunity to begin the study, and then also have me on your forum. I thank each and every one of you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Ashokji, do you want to take 1 or 2 questions?
Sure.
Okay. Bhanuji and Shivramanji, do you guys want to say something before we go to the questions? Maybe they are on. You're muted, I think.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. Okay. If can you unmute Sagarji? Unmute. Sagarji, can you unmute?
If you want to speak, you have to unmute.
Yes.
He is speaking.
I wish to thank Ashwat Garu, Ashwatji. We call you in a number of ways, just like we call Krishna and everybody else. Thank you very much for your most enlightened lecture. We read from childhood Vedas, but nobody has given us this detailed and knowledgeable information to us. And we have just scratched the surface to understand what is Veda and what are the introduction. And we thank you very much for enlightening us. And your last statements were for all of us, everybody, this information is for everybody, for all of us to come together to understand our dharma. Vedic principles are nothing but to tell us, emphasize, to follow our dharma. Thank you very much. On behalf of the temple, as well as on the behalf of all the friends who are attending this lecture today, and continue to attend to your lecture very intently, and for your efforts, thank you very much. Thank you. I cannot say no. Gurubhyo Namaha. Any other members?
Yeah, just one announcement. First of all, there was a delay in starting this Zoom session. Sorry about that. That was my mistake.
No problem.
And we will have another session next month, July. And please, look for the email and also try to register. That way, we will know the number of people who are going to attend, and we can adjust also.
There was one hand up, Mr.
Yeah,
Shetty.
there was.
Mr. Shetty was, and there was one raised hand I saw.
Somebody wants to say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Namaste, Ashwati. I wanted to know the last sloka that you recited. Is there a possibility of getting us the sloka and the menu?
Yes, I can share the text, and then I have also given a detailed commentary on that. Then I will share the recording of that commentary which I gave in my Veda class. I will send it to Parthiban sir. I think you may have a way to give it to anybody who desires to.
I
Very,
will.
very appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Sure. Yeah. It's one of my most favorite of the hymns. So in our Veda chanting class to our children, that's about the very first sukta that I teach our children. And we have many of our Veda class students. Rani is here, so they all have learned this beautiful sukta.
Actually, one of the question that came from a previous participant was whether you will give a diksha or what is it called for Gayatri mantra, right? So the Gayatri mantra has to be learned from the guru. So that was one of the questions. So they were asking, whether you would do this.
I do it, and I have done it to many people, but then it has to be done in physical presence. So that logistics have to be worked out.
Okay, I will pass it on to the participant,
because it cannot be done remotely. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sanat Kumar has something. You have to unmute. Sanat.
Garu, is there any more information of this group which is exploring the IAS officers, exploring about the Vedas?
If you go to the website of Veda Prasara Samiti, everything is available there. And I have a copy on MP3, and then Krishnan, when I was in Chennai, when we were planning the entire session, of course, I was not any more than in the very beginning conversation. The rest of the team has done it, but they have executed the project and it is available.
Is there any establishment of a time when these Vedas were written or spoken?
There is a lot of scholarship dating it to 1500 BC, 2000 BC, but as I mentioned earlier, all these concepts were there in folklore, in ballads, in the story, itihasa, Ramayana might have been composed in 7th or 8th century BC, but the story of Ramayana was known for thousands of years before that. So therefore, we cannot absolutely say what is the date, and then, but by and large, the scholarship seems to agree it is around 2000 BC that all of these got codified. But the date of Mahabharata war has been determined by Bhandarkar Rowlands Institute and others, and including my uncle, Dr. Ramaswamy, who worked on the dating of the Mahabharata. They are talking about 5100 BCE. So we are looking at about 7,000 years ago. Veda Vyasa was he was an eyewitness to Mahabharata war anyway. And therefore he must have heard it from his forefathers.
You mentioned the Samavedas was started in Kerala or and other Vedas?
All over. Samaveda. It's all over, yeah. So.
It's a lot of theories are floated. They say they were in the Greenland area and all that, but it is out of my scope of study because I was never greatly interested in dating of the text.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That's right.
Ashwaji.
Yeah, go ahead,
Can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So for a practical issue, Bhaktad is whoever is interested to learn and whoever wants the Diksha on Gayatri Mantram, please use the Hindu temple of Greater Chicago priests. All of them are our gurus. They will be more than happy to give Diksha, and I seek the help of Shivaraman and the religious committee members to coordinate this. It can be done in small groups, Samohikam, like 10 or 15, if there are a lot of people. If it's just one-on-one, all of our priests are very learned, and they have the authority as well as the capability to teach to those who seek. Obviously, if you want to go to Columbus or Orlando, or when he visits us, that can be done. But from practical point of view, please use the temple resources.
It's a good point. It's the priests all over are capable, because some of you who are in Chicago, you have access to Chicago temple. Those who are in other locations, local temple priests will be, I'm sure, quite glad to help you.
I have a question. Excuse me, I have a question.
Go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, actually, they do thread ceremony when they are before 8-year-old Upanayana. That time they are telling, dad tells the son in the ear about this chanting, and again they have to take Diksha, or that's it?
That is all. The Diksha is, the process is like this. Whoever wants to give you a Diksha has to do 24,000 times Gayatri Japa before they can transmit. Therefore, that casts a responsibility on anybody who is ready to give a Diksha. They have to actually get the authority to impart. And it does not count to whatever they are already doing, but they have to do specifically for the Diksha ceremony 24,000 times Japa they have to do. So it is not like somebody can give a Diksha, you go there in the evening and give.
So what is that when they do during Upanayana? Dad tells the son in the ear and then he starts doing Gayatri Mantra.
No, in the Upanayana, various Upanayanas I have conducted, I always tell the father that before the Upanayana day, you have to do 24,000 times.
He is eligible only after that to give the Diksha.
Then only he can give the Diksha. Any mantra for that matter, it is not just Gayatri Mantra.
Mhm.
Any mantra that a person wants to give Diksha, because it belongs to Karma Kanda.
Hmm.
See, you go, let's go back to our study today. Karma Kanda, the rules are very, very strict. There is no flexibility, just like, any profession, you have to follow the rules. If I have to drive, I have to follow the road rules. So similarly here also, whoever wants to initiate, they have to gain that merit before they can do it.
Oh, okay.
Even others, they can do it, but the efficacy will probably will suffer.
So for ladies also you give Diksha?
Absolutely. Because this is a transformative mantra for the mind and the intellect. So there is no gender for manas or buddhi.
And usually they say only ladies should chant Sri Sukta and not Purushukta.
Lot of misunderstanding.
Mm.
The Rigveda itself has a mantra which says, after teaching the student, you go and teach your wife and all the servants in your house, Aryaya Charanaya. When a student graduates, the Taittiriya Upanishad has a mantra which says, Swadhyaya pravachanabhyam na pramaditavyam. You should not stop studying and teaching others. It does not exclude anybody.
Mm.
This is the authority of the Veda itself.
So,
That's why I said,
So-
whenever you try to classify, we create cults.
so that was a,
Go ahead, sir.
yeah, so that was one of the questions that had been asked. One of our colleagues in California, who is a Hindu, married to a Muslim origin, and they were both interested, and that was one of the questions, whether females also can learn Gayatri Japam, and the answer was yes. Okay. Also, should the female also have Mundan? They were going to a holy place. And the answer was, it applies to both, if you want to do that. For other cosmetic or other purposes, for girls, probably it never became so popular. But I don't, from my limited knowledge, I will ask Ashwatji, I don't think anywhere it says that there is no such thing for a female.
No, as I said, the Taittiriya Upanishad itself gives an injunction. You go
Yeah.
home and then you never give up study.
The pronoun is not, very gender specific.
No,
Yeah.
either gender or caste or creed.
Or caste or creed, yeah.
Okay.
I
I think it's a time. So I think we can wind up today's class, right? Are you okay with that, Aswaji?
Absolutely.
think Prarthana, they will do Prarthana.
Okay. All right.
Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Harihi. For our next meeting,
Yes, sir.
should we continue with the branches of the Vedangas, which are tools to understand the meaning of the Vedas?
That will be good, sir. That will be good.
So Vedanga.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
possible. Thank you, everybody.
Mhm.
Thank
All right.
Namaste, Aswatji. Thank you. Very nice.
Ashwat, bada ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ
you.
Kara.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Maybe.